wanted to see a little bit more this past year. He came in with a first-round grade. I'm not sure he played to a first-round level of talent. However, he went to the combine and blazed that 4.42, whatever it was, at his size. You think about the ascent that guys like Evan Ingram and some of these speedier tight ends have done in recent years, and I think Alberto is probably the best chance to go in the first round, but Cole Kmet from Notre Dame might have something to say about that. I don't think he's a different dynamic type of player. Cole is a bit taller, not as explosive, not as much of a pass catching threat. So I think those are your top two guys. I do think that, Alberto could sneak into the back end of the first round if Brady was still in New England. I think the Patriots would have to think about that long and hard there at 23. So we'll just, see where that first tight end comes off the board. I think this is arguably maybe the weakest class in terms of top end talent. So when you talk about, impact players, not so sure we're going to see a lot of future starters at the tight end position in this year's draft class, but a lot of productive, and it's a different flavor of the week. If you take a look at the top, they're all shapes and sizes, different kinds of attributes and skill sets. This year's tight end class, there are no two guys very similar. They're all different types of breeds.
And that's where I was going next at tight end, because just about every other position, it is apples versus apples. You need such and such for an NFL guard, tackle. We could go on down the line. Sure, at wide receiver, you got slot receivers versus the guys that are split wide. But at tight end, depending on the offense, depending on how they want to utilize that tight end, you could be all over the map in regards to skill set.
Yeah, and then you take a guy like Hunter Bryant, I think, from Washington, who's kind of like under 6'3", so he's not going to be your traditional inline tight end, but this guy can make a lot of plays all over the field. So are you a guy that has a lot of 12 personnel? Are you a guy that has an H-back type of guy that, Hunter could slide in and play maybe some fullback, line up in the slot, be an H-back? So it really is depending on what you're looking for. Then you've got a bigger guy like a Bryson Hopkins who's got great size, great speed, is physical, but then I saw him against Penn State, and Cam Brown took him right out of the game with his physicality. And Cam Brown from Penn State, when we talk about linebackers, he just jammed Bryson Hopkins at that line of scrimmage and took him out of the game entirely. Then you got a guy like Colby Parkinson from Stanford. We all know the Stanford tight end pipeline to the NFL. They've been producing tight ends for days, and he's a guy that can block now. He could provide a little bit in the pass catching game, and nobody's even talking about Colby Parkinson. You talk about the depth, maybe not the impact players, but the depth of the tight end class. A guy like Colby Parkinson, a guy like Adam Troutman, the small school guy from Dayton, who was down at the Senior Bowl in Mobile making all kinds of plays. He could be one of the first tight ends off the board. And I will say the Florida Atlantic tight end, the other Hunter, I thought he was the best looking tight end of the whole bunch down there at the Senior Bowl.
And he won the Mackey Award, actually, as the best tight end in college football, which, again, for guys like me and guys that watch the major games, came as a bit of surprise when we lined him up against the big tight ends from the big schools. But he got the award for good reason. Rick, this is one of the big reasons why we bring you on right here. You mentioned this Purdue-Penn State matchup with Hopkins and Brown. I watched that game. Tons of people watched that game. Do I know that Cam Brown really did that to Bryce Hopkins? Of course not. I'm watching 22 players on the field and just watching a football game. We bring you on to let you let us know that Bryson Hopkins didn't match up well against Cam Brown. That's good stuff. Love that kind of stuff. That's why we got Rick Saratella on the line from NFL Draft Bible. Please check out his work. Again, there's the banner, NFLDraftBible.com, and the additional links down in the description section where you can track Rick and his work.